the book, Why People Believe in Weird Things.
I have the book if you want.
And it will teach you how to judge a study's validity.
Well, is there any validity to the...
None of Blum's studies were valid.
You have the book, huh, Steve?
I do.
Alright.
The problem is most people just don't go to the library to read the studies and judge their validity.
Well, I'm way over my educational
No.
factor.
That's it.
Way over.
No, you're not. It's not that hard. You just have to know what the criteria are, and you read the study and you look for the criteria. If they don't fulfill the criteria, they're not valid.
Well, in a nutshell, can you say, you did in a nutshell say that there was no validity to any of Ken Blum's studies?
I read 800 treatment studies. 800. I didn't find one valid study.
It was all biased?
There was always a criterion of the validity thing that failed. They didn't stick to the rules of validity. So when they don't have a valid study, the study is put in the garbage. You cannot use it. The conclusions that they come to are just not valid. I'm not saying they're wrong. They may be right.
Alright.
But you can't say they're right. None of the studies using these precursors, neurotransmitter precursors like tryptophan,
5-HTP.
other amino acids that they say are precursors of neurotransmitters.
Right.
None of them are valid. They called me up. Blum's people called me up and asked me to support their studies. I said, well, give me a valid study, and I'll support it. Show me one of your studies that's valid. They hung up the phone. They didn't even try. It's pure bullshit. Well, I'm telling you.
And I believe
I said it in the book. Anyone has a right to dispute me. All they have to do is come up with a valid study.
Okay.
Just show it to me. How many people have done that?
Okay.
They haven't done it. Valid studies are hard to come by in the field of addictions. And the ones that are valid, I will admit it. Nora Vocal has done countless valid studies. But what she has done is misinterpret the results so that it goes along with the hijack brain hypothesis. But it's a deliberate misinterpretation of the meaning of the study.
Is that why you never would underwrite any of the nutraceutical?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Not until I see a valid study.
Do you ever experiment on yourself, Dan?
With nutraceuticals? No.
No.
There's no such thing as a self-experiment. You have to have a large group of people. It has to be double-blinded so no one knows who's taking the placebo, who's taking the nutraceutical, and it has to be done over a long enough period of time. See, most of the studies are short-term, which rules them out. In other other words, like 6 months, 12 weeks. Rarely do they go a year, and they never go 5 years. So how can you tell the meaning of a drug treatment if they don't go 5 years?
Which brings us to the FDA-approved drugs. They never go 5 years, and yet they're approved.
No, they're all invalid.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about
The naltrexone for alcoholism, the topiramide, I think it's called, for alcoholism. They're all invalid. And not only that, they're also fraudulent in their claims.
How about Suboxone?
Well, Suboxone is
It's an agonist, is that?
it's like a methadone.
Well, that's what it's.
Except you don't get high. You can get high on methadone.
Well, it interrupts the receptors. I don't know what an agonist is.
Yeah, but that's not treatment. Suboxone you get addicted to.
Right.
It's like methadone. It's
Right.
just switching addictions.
Right.
You get off heroin or you get off oxycodone or Oxycontin, but you're addicted to another drug. So it's not really treatment. They call it a treatment. It's a misuse of the word.
What would you call it then?
Switching
Titrate
addictions to an acceptable drug.
Well, if it doesn't interfere with your behavior and it doesn't.
Yeah,
have
but
a lot of
heroin
side effects.
doesn't necessarily interfere with your behavior. There have been plenty of studies on heroin as treatment. You go to a clinic, you get your heroin shot.
Well, isn't that why heroin was developed? Something to get you off morphine.
Yeah, whatever. But heroin can be used as a treatment. It can be used as a treatment for heroin addiction.
Obviously.
But instead of doing it yourself, you go to a clinic, and your dose is regulated by the clinic. So you don't have to go out on the street and buy the heroin. The heroin is supplied to you, and you're not given enough heroin to overdose. So it's a harm reduction technique, which is valid, and it's also a treatment technique in terms of street heroin. You don't have to go mugging people and robbing banks and robbing drugstores. That's called harm reduction.
That is
But the United States wouldn't use it. The DEA says it's immoral to give heroin to a heroin addict.
Well, from that concept, what country would you model?
Well, Switzerland.
Switzerland? Okay. I'm not that familiar,
It's
but
in the book.
It's in the book.
Well, I read the book a while ago.
Well, it's the
Yeah, it's called
back here.
Is it called Prove?
Score, I think.
No, I think it's called Prove. It's in the index. Table of contents. It's in the table of contents. They have 15 or 16 clinics around Switzerland, which is a pretty small country.
Yeah.
Basically, a clinic in every big city.
Proof.
Proof, that's what I said.
The Swiss Medical Prescription of Narcotic Program.
Okay.
Right. And what they showed was it decreased every bad thing that heroin does.
Okay.
It's not the drug that causes the problems. It's the prohibition of the drug that causes the problem.
I know so little about heroin, though. Doesn't heroin build up? Don't you build up a tolerance
Yeah,
to heroin?
of course.
And so you have to.
You have to keep increasing the dose. Right.
Right.
Right. worked out between the patient and the clinic,
Okay.
the dose.
Do you eventually get to the point?
The important thing is that the clinic gives enough heroin so the person doesn't go out on the street to buy extra.
Okay.
The same with methadone. Methadone, you have to give enough methadone so the person is not induced by his addiction to go out and buy heroin in addition to the methadone.
Well, I had a heroin addict come up to me a couple days ago at a meeting. And we've seen each other before. He was in a lot worse shape when I saw him last time. He couldn't sit through an hour meeting. He had to get up. He was crying and having to go to the bathroom every 10 minutes. He was hurt. He was in much better condition this time, but he kind of unloaded on me. I'm not going to use any names.
Yeah, so what? What's the point?
Well, he's been through methadone for the heroin. He's on house arrest for a couple of years for trafficking.
Yeah, but the trafficking was
As a result,
to make the money to buy the heroin.
however, and details, but the addiction.
That's what I mean by the problem with heroin is the prohibition of heroin, not heroin itself. If you were just given enough heroin to take care of your addiction,
Right.
without
It sounds like government control at least would provide safe outlets with purity.
it's not just purity; it's also prevention of overdoses. But what it does is it gives a person time to decide to go into recovery. It makes sure that they live long enough to do it, and that they're in good enough shape.
Well, he is in our
Because
structure right now. He's on house arrest. Believe me, I don't understand.
Yeah, but he's not getting heroin; he's getting methadone.
No, he's titrating now off of methadone. Hasn't been on methadone for 2 to 3 weeks, if I remember correctly, and I apologize.
Well,
anyhow, now
you're relying on what he's telling you.
He came to me, Dan. I wasn't selling him shit.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap up this session. Merry Christmas, everybody. We're going to, shut this off and coming to you from Misty Creek, Florida.
I want to
little heroin discussion.